The hidden throne. Why the strongest shadow is the one you can't see. There's something hidden inside you. It's not your thoughts, not your emotions, not even your beliefs. It's deeper, much deeper. It's the invisible architect of your choices, your reactions, your silence. It's the part of you that watches everything but rarely speaks. And for the dark chosen ones, the few souls who carry a rare spiritual voltage within them, this hidden force is even more dangerous because it masquerades as wisdom. It disguises itself as humility. It wears the mask of purpose. But it's not your truth. It's your ego. Not the loud, obvious ego that wants followers and fame. No, this is the rare ego, the spiritual ego. The one that hides in your shadows and whispers, "You are different. You are meant for more. You are beyond them." And the terrifying part? It feels true, because some of it is.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
You see, the dark chosen ones don't walk the same path as others. We never did. We were born feeling different, outsiders, misunderstood, and from a young age we knew we saw things others didn't. We felt energy in rooms. We sensed lies in smiles. We carried pain that wasn't ours. And over time, that difference created distance. We couldn't relate to small talk. We couldn't fake normal. So we turned inward. We searched. We meditated. We read the ancient texts. We watched the stars and waited for answers. And slowly, something awakened. A fire. A knowing. A presence. And with it came the whispers, "You're here for something greater." And that's true. But here's what no one tells you: that knowing is not power. That knowing is bait. It's the beginning of your trials, not the proof of your mastery. And if you mistake that whisper for truth, you'll build your identity around it. You'll feed the rare ego, and you won't even realize it. The rare ego doesn't chase attention. It chases meaning. And that's why it's so hard to detect. It tells you to be humble, but secretly it wants to be seen as humble. It tells you not to lead, but secretly it wants others to follow you anyway. It tells you to be above the material world, but it secretly judges those who aren't. It tells you to let go of identity, but it secretly builds a new one: spiritual, enlightened, chosen. And because it whispers in the language of purpose, you believe it. You confuse your path with your persona. You wear your pain like a badge. You speak with depth, but you're still performing, still posturing, still subtly superior. And here's the most dangerous part: you don't even know it's happening. Because the rare ego doesn't feel like ego. It feels like destiny. But it's not. It's the shadow of your potential. The echo of who you could be if you weren't so addicted to being seen as someone who's already there. So how do we see it? How do we expose this rare ego when it wears our own face? We have to look at the friction. Where is your energy tight? Where are you still trying to prove? Where do you feel the need to explain your depth? Where do you secretly want recognition, even from the people you claim don't matter? That's where it hides. That's where the rare ego feeds in the subtle hunger to be known, to be understood, to be special. And yes, I know what you're thinking, but I am different. I am meant for more. And you're right. But here's the paradox. The more rare your light, the more seductive your shadow. The more pain you've survived, the more temptation to use that pain as identity. The more gifts you carry, the more you'll want to be seen as the one who carries them. But true power doesn't need to be seen. It sees, and it's silent. It doesn't perform. It doesn't posture. It presents. There was a time I thought I had transcended ego. I had meditated for hours a day. I had fasted in the desert. I had left relationships, money, comfort, all in the name of truth. But then I noticed something. Every time I spoke about my journey, I was subtly positioning myself as the one who got it. I didn't tell stories to express. I told them to impress. I didn't share wisdom to serve. I shared it to shine. And when someone didn't recognize the depth of what I was saying, I felt frustrated. Not because they were missing the truth, but because they weren't validating me. That's when I realized I was still performing, still feeding the rare ego. And it broke me, because I thought I was free. But I was just in a more sophisticated cage, one lined with crystals and incense, but still a cage. So I did the only thing that would break it. I went silent, not just outwardly, inwardly. I stopped teaching. I stopped explaining. I stopped branding my purpose. I let go of being the guru. I let go of being the one who knows. And I just was. I sat with my unworthiness. I sat with my emptiness. I sat with the part of me that didn't need to be seen at all. And something strange happened. I didn't disappear. I expanded. My presence deepened. My truth sharpened. My joy returned. Not because I was being recognized, but because I didn't need to be. And that was the moment I realized the rare ego dies not when you defeat it, but when you no longer hide behind it. Now I ask you, what part of your spiritual identity are you still hiding behind? Is it the healer? The guide? The misunderstood one? The old soul? The lone wolf? The rebel? The deep thinker? The wounded warrior? Look closer. Is it truth or is it armor? Is it essence or is it performance? Because if you want to unlock your real power, the power that doesn't shake rooms but rebuilds worlds, you have to be willing to let it all go. The titles, the labels, the depth, the story, the chosen identity. You have to be willing to be nothing. That's the only way to become everything. And this is where the journey begins, not in power, but in purification. Not in being seen, but in being stripped. The rare ego is not your enemy. It's your teacher. It shows you where you're still afraid to be nobody. And if you can sit with that fear long enough, if you can let go of even being the chosen one, something even rarer emerges. A power beyond image, a truth beyond words, a presence that speaks in silence. That's what awaits you on the other side. But first, you must descend into the throne you didn't know you were sitting on. You must dethrone yourself, You must ask, what if the part of me that wants to lead is still the part that's most afraid to be alone? The mirror is lying. Why the rarest souls attract the most false reflections. Have you ever wondered why the more awakened you become, the more misunderstood you feel? Why the deeper your insight, the more people misinterpret your silence as arrogance, your intensity as coldness, your clarity as superiority? This isn't a coincidence. It's because the rarest souls, especially the dark chosen ones, begin to emit a frequency that ordinary mirrors can't reflect. You confuse people because you no longer reflect back their illusions. You don't play the roles they expect. You don't offer them the comfort of predictability. And so they project, they judge, they label. Not because they see you, but because they can't. The rare ego, hidden deep within us, feeds on these false reflections. It wants to correct people. It wants to be seen as the real you. But here's the paradox. The more you need to be accurately seen, the more you're still trapped. Because the moment you demand the world to reflect your truth, you've already given it power. You've made your inner knowing dependent on outer recognition. And for the dark chosen one, that's a subtle form of spiritual slavery. We say we don't care what others think, but inside, there's still a flicker of craving. Why don't they get me? Why can't they see how awake I really am? Why do they treat me like I'm average? That's the rare ego. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's needy. It wants to be seen for its depth without having to scream for it. I've been there. I've walked into rooms where I knew the truth in my bones, where I could feel the energetic knots in every person present, where every unspoken lie was loud as thunder in my heart. And I said nothing. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew speaking would feed the part of me that still wanted to be seen as the one who sees. And that's the trap. The rare ego doesn't want to dominate. It wants to be validated as evolved. It wants people to notice that you don't react, that you stay calm, that you hold space, that you don't gossip, that you're detached. It wants applause for your silence. And the moment you look for that reflection in others, you've already lost your center. So what do we do when the mirror lies? When the world reflects back confusion, distortion, or nothing at all? We stop looking. We stop trying to be understood. We stop trying to be mirrored. Because the truth is, the higher you rise in consciousness, the fewer accurate reflections you'll find. You become a black mirror, absorbing, transmuting, but rarely being reflected back. And that's not a punishment. That's a responsibility. You were not born to be seen. You were born to see. You were not chosen to be validated. You were chosen to vibrate. That's the deeper initiation of the dark chosen one. You become invisible not because you don't shine, but because your light no longer conforms to angles the average eye can perceive. And here's where it gets deeper. The more you let go of needing to be seen, the more your true energy starts to move. You become weather. You shift the room without a word. You awaken people without effort. You dismantle illusions without confrontation. But here's the catch. You must be willing to be misunderstood indefinitely. You must be willing to live your truth without ever being thanked for it. You must be willing to be the villain in someone else's story, even when you were the medicine they didn't know they needed. That's when the rare ego dies. When you no longer need to perform your power, you just become it. When I fully surrendered to this, something miraculous happened. I stopped getting triggered by people's projections. I stopped feeling the need to explain my silence. I stopped hungering for recognition from other awakened people. I realized the most powerful beings I had ever encountered were often the quietest, the most misunderstood, the most unassuming. They didn't need to be known. They were too busy knowing. And that's what the rare ego can never do. It can never rest. It's always seeking, always comparing, always measuring its progress by the reflections of others. But when you let it dissolve, you become a still lake, moved by storms, yet capable of reflecting the entire sky. So now I ask you, what would happen if you stopped trying to be seen? What would happen if you let the world mislabel you, misread you, even reject you, and remained rooted in your own inner knowing? Could you still walk the path? Could you still hold the frequency? Could you still love those who cannot love you back in the way you crave? Because that's the test. That's the mirror of mastery. Not whether others see the truth in you, but whether you can keep living it even when no one else does. And this is where the rare ego meets its most sacred death. Not in drama, not in breakdown, but in irrelevance. When you no longer need to be seen as awake, you become unseeably awake. When you no longer need to be revered, you become truly reverent. And when you no longer need to be understood, you finally begin to understand everything. So if you're still seeking reflections, still waiting for someone to see your light, still aching for someone to say, "I get you," just notice that. Not with judgment, but with awareness. That's the rare ego whispering again. And it's okay. Catch it. Breathe. Let it go. Your power was never in being seen. It was always in seeing. The final detachment: how to kill the rare ego without losing your soul. There comes a point on this path where you meet a terrifying question. If I let go of even this sacred identity, this rare calling, this deep sense of being the dark chosen one, what will be left of me? The rare ego, unlike the ordinary ego, doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't shout. It doesn't pose. It whispers. It makes itself into a philosophy, a persona, a mission. And beneath it all, it says, "If you let me go, you'll lose your meaning." That lie is so subtle, so seductive, that even the most awakened beings fall for it. Because it presents itself not as ego, but as essence. And so we cling, not to vanity, but to significance, to the idea that our pain made us unique, that our path made us sacred, that our vision made us necessary. But here's the truth that shatters the illusion. Your soul is necessary, but your identity is not. The final detachment is not about giving everything up. It's about giving up the need to be anything, anything at all. Not the hero, Not the teacher, not the deep one, not the misunderstood one, not even the awakened one. The rare ego dies the moment you choose truth over self. That means truth over your story, truth over your wounds, truth over your depth, truth over your narrative. And this is where many fall away, because we've worked so hard to become this version of ourselves. We bled for it. We sacrificed for it. We built this spiritual identity brick by sacred brick. And now we're being asked to burn the temple we built with our own hands. Not because it was wrong, but because it's too small for what we now carry. You see, the rare ego was never evil. It was a cocoon, a necessary illusion. It gave us form when we were formless. It gave us language when we were mute. It gave us meaning when we were drowning in the void. But now the cocoon is cracking, and we're being asked to fly not as the chosen one, not as the healer, not as the mystic, but as nobody, as nothing, as pure presence. And in that nothingness, something wild and ancient awakens. A power that doesn't come from identity, a wisdom that doesn't come from experience, a love that doesn't come from need. This is the field beyond ego. The place Rumi pointed to when he said, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. That field is not outside you. It is you when you've emptied all the roles you thought you had to play. I remember the moment I stood in that field. It wasn't during a ceremony. It wasn't after a great spiritual achievement. It was in a quiet afternoon, sitting barefoot in a field after walking away from everything: money, status, even my name. I had nothing left to prove, nothing left to explain, no one left to impress. I was empty. And in that emptiness, I felt everything. I felt the wind as myself, the silence as my voice, the earth as my skin. I wasn't someone spiritual. I wasn't the awakened one. I was just here. And that's when I knew the rare ego had died, not with a scream, but with a sigh, a gentle surrender into total presence. So now the question comes to you not as a challenge, but as an invitation. Can you let go of the identity you've built around your awakening? Can you stop performing depth? Can you stop managing your image as the one who gets it? Can you stop needing to be anything at all? Because if you can, what opens is not a void, but a vortex. A living current of truth that moves through you without resistance. You no longer have to speak to be heard. You no longer have to heal to be useful. You no longer have to know to be wise. You just are. And that being becomes your transmission. And that is the final secret. The one no book can teach. The one no retreat can give you. The one no guru can initiate you into. True power is not becoming more, it's becoming less. So little of you remains that only truth can flow. And in that state, you don't even know you're powerful. You don't think about it. You don't need it. You are too empty to attach to it. And that's why the universe trusts you with it. Because you don't use it, you are it. So now I ask you one final question. And be honest. Let this land in your bones. If you had to walk the rest of your life without anyone ever recognizing your power, your truth, or your role, would you still walk it? If no one saw your light, would you still carry it? If no one called you chosen, would you still choose yourself? If your words never went viral, if your wisdom never got applause, if your silence never got respected, would you still walk the path? Because that is where the rare ego dies, and that is where the real journey begins. You are not special. You are sacred. You are not chosen. You are choosing. You are not rare. You are real. And that is more than enough. The rare ego is dead. The soul now breathes. Now rise, not as someone who knows, but as someone who no longer needs to.